Chosen one, you lost everything. Because you're meant to have more than everything. There comes a moment in the life of the chosen one when the ground beneath your feet gives way. Everything you thought you had, gone. The relationships, the resources, the sense of safety, the dreams you held so tightly, they crumble into dust right before your eyes. People watch from afar and whisper, they lost it all. But what they don't understand is that you weren't just losing, you were being prepared. The universe does not destroy what is meant to thrive. It clears what has expired. You weren't being stripped down to be left bare. You were being stripped to be crowned. Before we begin this divine unraveling of your story, I want you to pause and recognize what this moment means. If you've ever felt like your whole life collapsed around you, if you've ever questioned why you had to lose so much, this message is your confirmation. Watch this video till the very end, because everything is about to make sense. And when you're ready, write your warmest wishes in the comments. Leave a 99 to align with this frequency of transformation and expansion. This is the chapter where wishes come true and the universe begins to respond to your silent cries. Now let's go deeper into this, because what looked like loss on the outside was gain in disguise. You were never meant to have just enough. You were meant to live in overflow. But overflow can't come where clutter reigns. So, the universe did what it does to every chosen soul. It disrupted your false stability. It removed the counterfeit so you could receive the true. It exposed the hollow things so you'd never again settle for surface love, surface success, surface joy. Every exit you suffered, every ending you endured, every abandonment you survived, it was heaven's strategy. When you lose everything, something else happens deep inside you. The ego breaks, the illusion shatters, the identity you once wore peels off layer by layer until you see your soul in the mirror. Raw, honest, undeniable. That's when the awakening begins. That's when the upgrade starts. Not around you, but within you. Because the real shift in a chosen one's life is internal before it ever becomes external. And this shift can only happen when everything else is stripped away. The emptying is sacred. The stillness is not punishment, it's preparation. You were forced to sit in silence, not because you were being ignored, but because you were finally being tuned into. You weren't being punished when they turned their backs. You were being refined when they walked away. They had to go so your real support could arrive. Some doors had to slam shut so that better ones could open without competition. What you lost wasn't meant to be yours forever. It served its purpose, taught its lesson, and left. You outgrew it, and the pain of that detachment was simply the stretching of your capacity for more. Let's talk about that more. Not just more money, not just more opportunity, not just more validation, but more alignment, more clarity, more divine authority. The kind of more that cannot be stolen or shaken. The kind that elevates you in silence and introduces you in power. But before that more comes into your life, your container had to be emptied. You had to be humbled so deeply that nothing outside of you could define your worth again. You had to know what it felt like to have no one but still rise, to have nothing but still believe, to be crushed but not destroyed. The chosen ones always rise from ashes. It's not just a poetic metaphor, it's your life. You've walked through fires that others couldn't even stand next to. You've rebuilt yourself with tears in your eyes and nobody clapping for you. You've learned to carry light in dark places, to smile with a broken heart, to speak life while bleeding inside. And you've done it without applause. That's what makes you dangerous now. That's what makes you unstoppable. Because the world cannot intimidate someone who has survived complete collapse and still found their center. There is a sacred power that lives in those who've lost everything. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's not even always visible, but it is unshakable. It whispers in the soul, "I've been there before, and I'm still standing." It carries a calm that can't be disrupted, a knowing that can't be faked. And when you move from that kind of stillness, nothing external can take your peace. That's why you're about to be trusted with more. That's why the doors that didn't open before are going to swing wide for you now. You're no longer who you were. You are elevated. You are transformed. Let me say this again. You were never meant to stay in that broken place. You were only meant to pass through it. Like a tunnel, not a tomb. The world tried to bury you, but they didn't know you were a seed. They didn't realize that every heartbreak, every failure, every betrayal was watering your soil. And now the time has come for your bloom. What was lost will be returned. Not in the same form, but in divine abundance. Not just what you had before, but what you couldn't even imagine back then. The kind of return that feels like a divine refund with interest. And as you receive this, you must also release. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the resentment. Let go of trying to make it all make sense. It's not your job to understand the full map. It's your job to take the next step. And that next step is to embrace what you've become, to own your growth, to walk in your new identity, to stop apologizing for evolving. You are no longer the version of yourself that tolerated small things, begged for attention, or doubted your worth. That version is gone, and what remains is royalty, forged through the fire. This is the moment when everything begins to click. The signs start aligning. The people you lost are replaced by soul-aligned connections. The opportunities you missed are replaced by divine doors that only open for those with pure intentions. You don't chase anymore. You attract. You don't beg anymore. You command. You don't survive anymore. You thrive. Because now you know, the loss was never about lack. It was the greatest signal of coming overflow, and your soul finally knows how to receive it. It was never about what was taken. It was always about what was about to be given. When you're chosen, you live in a different rhythm. You suffer in silence, while others celebrate loudly. You're emptied when others are being filled. You walk through seasons that make no sense to others, and yet something within you refuses to die. That something is not weakness, it's divine resilience. It's a flame that won't be extinguished, no matter how long the night stretches or how cold the world becomes. That's why you're still here, stronger, sharper, softer, and more sacred than you've ever been. People saw your downfall. They didn't see your rebirth. They witnessed your breakdown, but they weren't there for your breakthrough. They heard about your losses, but they don't know about your lessons. And that's okay, because this next chapter isn't for their validation. It's for your fulfillment. You don't need their approval to rise. You only need your own permission. The kind of permission that says, I release the shame of the past. I release the guilt of survival. I release the belief that I have to explain why I'm still standing. There is a difference between being humbled and being humiliated. You were humbled for a reason, so you'd never mistake temporary status for eternal value. The humiliation you felt, that wasn't real. That was the ego being peeled away, screaming as it lost its grip on your identity. The real you, your soul, was always steady, always secure, always divine. But now, after everything has been stripped, that true self is rising without noise, without announcement, without needing validation. And that's exactly what makes your comeback unstoppable. Some people walked away when you had nothing, and they thought they had seen your final version. What they didn't realize is that you were just getting started. That version of you was your cocoon, not your coffin. That season of silence was not your exile, it was your sacred incubation. While they counted you out, the universe was counting every tear, every lesson, every sacrifice. And what it stored for you in secret is about to be revealed in glory, not to prove anything to them, but to remind you of who you are. You had to walk away from what was familiar, even when it broke your heart, because if you stayed in that comfort, you would have missed the calling. And so, you were moved, you were shaken, you were redirected. And now, in this moment of clarity, you understand. It had to happen. All of it. The betrayal, the loss, the delay, the silence, the waiting. Every single part was perfectly placed to prepare you for what's next. This is what most people don't tell you about being chosen. It hurts deeply. It breaks everything that is fake inside of you. It removes all that is not aligned. It exposes you to the raw truth of who you are, and it strips away every mask. You lose the crowd, you lose the noise, you lose the crutches, but in losing it all, you find your essence. And that essence is pure power, the kind of power that can't be bought, borrowed, or broken. There's a reason you were never satisfied with average. There's a reason you couldn't settle even when it was easier. There's a reason you felt like a misfit in the world's systems. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to lead. You were meant to shine from the ashes. You were meant to carry wisdom birthed in the dark. And now, as the light starts to rise in your life again, everything will begin to unfold in divine sequence. People will look at you and call it a comeback. But you'll know better. This isn't a comeback. It's a becoming. You're not returning to who you were. You're stepping into who you always were, but had to fight to remember. You had to be stripped of what wasn't yours to claim what always belonged to you. You had to be emptied of lies to be filled with truth. You had to be humbled before you could hold divine glory. There's no shame in losing everything. The shame would have been in never realizing what you deserved. And now that you do, now that you understand your worth, there's no going back. You will no longer beg for places that couldn't hold your essence. You will no longer shrink to fit into spaces that couldn't handle your truth. You will no longer explain your light to those who prefer shadows. You are here to rise, not to convince. Everything is about to reflect your transformation, your connections, your opportunities, your environment, your thoughts, your habits, your presence. It's not just about material gain. It's about energetic alignment. You've been tuned to a higher frequency, and anything that doesn't match that frequency will naturally fall away. That's not rejection. That's protection. The new you is protected by divine energy that does not allow regressions, only expansions. So breathe. Breathe into this new version of you. Breathe into the space that's finally safe enough to hold your whole self. Breathe into the abundance that no longer feels foreign. Because now, you know, you are not lacking. You are overflowing. Not because you chased anything, but because you became everything you were always meant to be. This next chapter of your life will not be built on desperation, but on destiny. It will not be built on survival, but on sacred strength. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from wisdom. You're not starting from zero. You're starting from power. And the universe knows this. That's why it took its time. That's why it allowed the breaking, because what's about to be built on your life cannot fall. It's being built on truth, on authenticity, on divine alignment. The storm wasn't the end, it was the clearing. The silence wasn't rejection, it was the preparation. The loss wasn't your destruction, it was your redirection. And now, you're standing at the edge of something massive, not because you begged for it, but because you were born for it. There is a point in every chosen one's life where the silence grows louder than the noise. It's the space where you begin to understand that isolation was not abandonment, it was an invitation to see yourself clearly, an invitation to hear the whispers of your calling without interference. You weren't being excluded, you were being consecrated, pulled aside, not because you were lesser, but because you were more than the room could handle, more than the cycle could contain, more than the people around you could understand. You see, when you lose everything, it feels like death. And in a way, it is. It's the death of attachments, the death of illusions, the death of versions of you that were too small for the life that's coming. What hurts is not just the absence of what you lost, but the unfamiliarity of who you're becoming, because you haven't fully met that version yet. You haven't yet seen what you look like, healed, elevated, fully aligned. But that version is already breathing beneath the surface, waiting for you to stop clinging to the ruins and start claiming the crown. This season was not about proving your strength to others. It was about discovering your own power. You had to see yourself break and survive. You had to witness your own endurance. Because nothing makes a soul more powerful than surviving their own collapse. And now you walk differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. The kind that says, "I've been through the valley and I still kept my light." That kind of energy can't be faked. It's earned through pain, through process, through perseverance. They don't know how many nights you cried in silence. They don't know how many times you questioned your worth. They don't know how close you came to giving up. But you didn't. You stayed. You faced the emptiness. You held your own heart when no one else showed up. And now, your reward is not just what's coming to you, it's who you've become. That's the real wealth. That's the real transformation. And it's irreversible. Everything that was removed made space for truth. The truth about your worth. The truth about your vision. The truth about your calling. And now that you've seen it, you can't go back to pretending. You can't unsee what was revealed in the wilderness. You can't unlearn the strength you discovered in the silence. And because of that, your energy has changed. You don't need to scream to be heard. You don't need to chase to be chosen. You just are. You are the frequency now. You are the open door. You are the divine signal that things have shifted. And because of that, everything around you is going to start responding differently. Opportunities will locate you. Resources will flow toward you. Aligned souls will be drawn to you. Not because you're trying to manifest, because you've become the manifestation. Your inner world is so elevated now that it magnetizes everything your soul was meant to receive. But understand this, the old world will try to pull you back. Familiar people will try to guilt you. Old habits will try to tempt you. Don't fall for it. What's behind you cannot compare to what's in front of you. You didn't survive all of that just to return to the versions of yourself that were dying inside. You didn't lose everything just to stay stuck in survival mode. You were prepared for royalty. You were broken to be rebuilt with divine precision. You were emptied to be filled with the kind of purpose that cannot be denied. This is not about ego. This is not about revenge. This is about rising, quietly, powerfully, with dignity, with grace. Because now you understand. Nothing external can validate the internal work that has happened within you. Your life is not a performance anymore. It's a sacred alignment. You're no longer here to impress. You're here to embody. You're here to shine. Not for applause, but because it's your nature. What you've gone through was sacred. Not everyone will understand it. Not everyone is supposed to. Some will mock it. Some will minimize it. Let them. Their perception is not your truth. You didn't rise to be understood. You rose to be aligned. You rose to become the version of yourself that was buried under years of survival, conditioning, and false beliefs. And now that you're here, nothing will ever feel the same again. The way you walk into rooms will change. The way you speak will carry more weight. Your silence will feel louder than others' noise. Your presence alone will shift atmospheres, not because you're trying, but because you've become. The old version of you was hoping, waiting, wishing. The new version of you knows. The new version of you commands. The new version of you receives without guilt, without fear, without apology. You're not starting over. You're starting from power, from depth, from sacred identity. And as you step into this next season, doors will open not because you knock, but because your very essence is the key. You no longer ask for permission. You no longer dim your light to fit into old frameworks. You've outgrown everything that tried to contain you. And now, everything aligned with your highest self will begin to unfold, naturally, effortlessly, divinely. So if you're still mourning what you lost, take this moment to release. Mourn it fully. Grieve if you need to. But don't stay there, because what's ahead of you is too glorious to be delayed by what's already gone. The universe has waited long enough. You've healed enough. You've learned enough. Now, it's time to receive. You didn't just survive. You transformed. And with that transformation comes a new set of rules. The old rules don't apply to you anymore. The timelines others follow don't apply to you. The fears others carry don't live in you. The places where you used to shrink, you now stand tall. The situations where you used to beg, you now walk away. This is not arrogance. This is awareness. This is the result of rising from the ashes and remembering your worth in the fire. You see, chosen ones don't just rebuild their lives, they redefine the blueprint. What's coming to you is not a replica of what was lost. It's a rebirth. It's a realm you've never touched before. New energies, new visions, new territory. The ground you're walking into hasn't been walked by the old you. It's for the evolved version. The one that's been shaped through storms, pressed through pressure, and elevated in silence. What's ahead is so new, so unfamiliar, that your old self wouldn't even recognize it as yours, but your soul does. That's why you've been feeling the pull lately, that quiet tug that says, there's more, that deep inner whisper that reminds you, this is not your final form. This is not the end of your becoming. As heavy as the past was, and as long as the valley felt, the peak ahead is higher than you ever imagined. But you must keep ascending, without the baggage, without the bitterness, without the blame. You don't need to carry explanations with you. The only thing you need to carry is alignment. The truth is, some people will try to follow you into this next chapter, but they won't be able to breathe in your elevation. Don't grieve it. Don't resist it. The air gets thinner the higher you rise. Not everyone can withstand that altitude. Some relationships were seasonal. Some attachments were lessons. Some environments were temporary launch pads. Let them go. Let them remain where they belonged, behind you. Your future deserves undivided energy. You can't afford to split your soul between what broke you and what's about to bless you. Your soul is calling you forward, not just into abundance, but into assignment. You're not being elevated just for yourself. You're being positioned for impact. There are people who will find their healing in your presence. There are doors that only you can unlock. There are frequencies only your voice can reach. But to embody that, you had to lose everything that wasn't truly you. You had to be stripped of the surface so your substance could emerge. And now that it has, everything changes. You don't look at life the same anymore. You don't react to pain the way you used to. You don't see obstacles as signs to quit, but as signals to shift. You've moved beyond needing outside validation because your inner clarity is louder than any applause. That's power. That's evolution. That's what the universe has been waiting for. Not your perfection, but your alignment. You are no longer led by the urgency of fear. You are led by the certainty of knowing. You don't panic when plans change. You adapt. You don't collapse when things fall apart. You pivot. This isn't the same old story with a different cover. This is a brand new book, written by a brand new version of you. And the plot twist? You're the author now. You don't chase outcomes. You create them. You don't seek approval. You embody purpose. Let's be clear. There will still be challenges, but this time, you face them from a different position. You're not reacting. You're responding. You're not surviving. You're creating. You're not hoping. You're expecting. Because once you've touched your power, your real, untouchable, unshakable power, you never settle again. For crumbs, for chaos, for confusion. You simply don't tolerate what contradicts your calling. And that's why it's all about to unfold. The abundance you're stepping into isn't random. It's righteous. It's not a coincidence. It's compensation. You're being rewarded for every unseen effort, for every silent tear, for every time you chose growth over comfort. And it won't always make sense to others. They'll wonder how you rose so quickly. They'll question how you gained so much. But they'll never understand the depth of what you lost, the hell you walked through, or the healing you fought for when no one was watching. You didn't just lose everything. You lost what wasn't real so you could gain what's eternal. You lost what was loud so you could hear what was true. You lost what distracted you so you could finally see what was destined for you. And now you are ready. Ready to step fully into the abundance, the purpose, and the sacred elevation that your old self couldn't even dream of. This is your resurrection season. The season where every no you heard is replaced by a divine yes. The season where every delay reveals itself as protection. The season where every broken part of your story becomes fuel for your legacy. You no longer need to beg. You no longer need to chase. You simply receive, boldly, gratefully, powerfully, because the one who lost everything is about to gain more than everything. There's a quiet moment after you've lost it all when the world goes still. You sit there, surrounded by the rubble of what once was, and something divine happens, not outside you, but within you. It's not a flash of lightning. It's not a loud revelation. It's a quiet awakening, a whisper that says, "You're still here." And in that whisper lives the greatest truth. If you're still here, it's not over. That's the secret only the chosen ones understand. That survival wasn't the goal. It was the doorway. You didn't come this far just to crawl forward. You came this far to fly. But first, you had to be emptied of all the weight that clipped your wings. And now, you finally realize that weight wasn't just circumstance. It was identity. You were never meant to carry what you were clinging to. You were trying to build a future with materials that belonged to your past. The loss? It was divine intervention. Not punishment, permission. Permission to rebuild from your truth. To build with what resonates, not what pleases. To step forward without shame, fear, or the need to prove anything. You don't owe the world an explanation for your evolution. You don't need to justify your growth. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. Because you've seen yourself fully. You've seen what remains when everything else is gone. And that version of you is unshakable. The people who once misunderstood your silence will now witness your strength. The ones who doubted your rise will now see your purpose unfold. But this time, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for the promise, for the calling, for the future that kept calling you even when your past was screaming. You're no longer trying to rewrite the past. You've accepted it for what it was, the soil that birthed your transformation. It's true, you lost everything, but you didn't lose yourself. In fact, you found the part of you that was buried under years of conditioning, pain, and false narratives. You found the version of you that doesn't flinch when things fall apart. The version that doesn't apologize for being powerful. The version that doesn't shrink in the face of uncertainty. You've become someone new, yet someone deeply familiar, someone ancient, someone sacred, someone undeniable. And now, everything in your life must adjust to that frequency. The relationships, the routines, the environments, the conversations, everything that remains must rise to match the you that survived, the you that healed, the you that now walks with divine clarity and unstoppable fire. You're not desperate anymore. You're disciplined. You're not exhausted from proving yourself. You're focused on embodying your truth. You don't need attention. You attract alignment. You don't chase love. You are love. There's no more need to ask, why did I lose it all? Because now you see it. You see that what you called everything was actually not enough. It wasn't complete. It wasn't stable. It wasn't sacred. And so it had to go. You see now that everything that walked away was replaced by deeper alignment. You see now that the silence led you to the loudest revelation of your life, that nothing external could define your worth. You had to walk alone. You had to break. You had to sit in the ruins with trembling hands and an uncertain heart. But look at you now. Look at how you speak with fire. Look at how you stand tall, even when no one applauds. Look at how you breathe in peace instead of panic. Look at how you show up, unapologetically, unashamed, unafraid. That's power. That's presence. That's the evidence of divine preparation. This journey didn't make you bitter. It made you bold. It didn't destroy your heart. It refined your spirit. It didn't make you lose faith. It taught you how to truly trust. Trust the timing. Trust the detours. Trust the pauses. Trust yourself. Because now, you no longer move out of desperation. You move out of divine instruction. And as you move forward, everything begins to respond. Opportunities you once chased now find you. Doors that remained locked suddenly open. Not because you knocked louder, but because you became the key. You carry a frequency now that commands access, not because of who you know, but because of who you've become. And this access, it can't be bought. It can't be copied. It can't be denied. Because access granted by the divine is irrevocable. That's what makes this next season unstoppable. Not because you're perfect, not because you have it all figured out, but because you finally surrendered to who you really are. No more pretending. No more performing. No more playing small. You've outgrown the roles others assigned to you. You've shed the false identities, And what remains now is something real, something rooted, something rare. And now, finally, the world gets to meet you. There's something sacred about reaching the point where you've got nothing left to lose. It's where fear dissolves, where shame has no grip, where the illusion of control shatters and something greater begins to lead. And in that surrender, your soul finally stretches. It stretches past logic, past timelines, past expectations. You realize you were never here just to survive. You were designed to transform, to rise, to embody light even when surrounded by the darkest nights. When you lost everything, you were never really losing. You were being delivered from attachments that dulled your brilliance, delivered from identities that weren't truly yours, delivered from stories that caged your spirit. That painful undoing was not chaos. It was divine correction. You weren't being abandoned. You were being realigned, recalled back to your original frequency, back to the you that existed before the pain, before the compromises, before the conditioning. You didn't just survive a storm. You became the storm. You became the force that walks into a room and shifts the energy. The presence that doesn't need to demand attention because it commands it through calm, truth, and clarity. You became the version of you that trusts the unseen, the version that no longer bows to fear or lets anxiety narrate the story, the version that knows, absolutely knows, that the universe doesn't take without the intention to return tenfold. And that return is already on its way. But this time, you're not chasing it. You're welcoming it from a place of alignment, from a place of balance, from a place of knowing that you are not behind. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Everything that felt delayed was actually divine protection. Everything that was denied was spiritual refinement. And everything that left was meant to. There's no bitterness in your new energy, just boundaries, no resentment, just clarity. You don't explain anymore. You express. You don't seek comfort in chaos anymore. You seek peace, and you guard it like the treasure it is, because you now understand the price of losing yourself for things that were never meant to stay, and you won't make that mistake again. You've become someone new, and because of that, life has to meet you where you are, not where you were. You no longer settle for lukewarm love, half-hearted friendships, or shallow dreams. Your energy is too costly to invest in things that don't nourish you. You are done shrinking, done explaining, done begging for crumbs when you were born to own the feast. And here's what's so powerful. Your story is about to inspire people who are still in their storm. Your presence will be a lifeline, not because you're trying to preach, but because you are the message. You are living proof that losing everything isn't the end. It's the beginning of everything sacred, everything authentic, everything eternal. The way you carry yourself, the way you love, the way you create, it's all infused with the wisdom of your breaking. You no longer define success by the world's metrics. You define it by how deeply you feel, how freely you live, how fully you show up. You've realized that real abundance is peace. Real wealth is clarity. Real purpose is freedom. And you now embody all three. That's why everything is beginning to shift around you. Reality is adjusting to the new you, the real you. This isn't just a comeback, it's your coronation. This is the season where your scars become symbols of strength, where your past becomes a testimony, where your energy alone opens doors that were once sealed shut. And you don't need to announce it, you just are. Elevated, rooted, seen, empowered. Your tears were never wasted. Your heartbreaks were not in vain. Your solitude was sacred soil. And now, you are walking in the harvest of everything you planted in the dark. Not because you forced it, but because you became it. This is your reward, not from the world, but from the divine. A reward for holding on, for growing through the silence, for becoming unshakable when everything shook. You are not who you were when this began, and you're never going back there. You can't. You've tasted truth. You've embodied power. You've met yourself, and that changes everything. So walk boldly now. No fear, no apology, no doubt. The universe already knows your name. Destiny has already adjusted its course. And everything you thought you lost? It was just clearing the way for the more that's been waiting for you all along. I lost the world, but I found my soul, broken in silence, yet perfectly whole. Torn from the comfort, stripped of the name, I rose from the ashes, reborn from the flame. They saw the loss, but not the gain, the strength I built inside the pain. The crown I wear is forged in fire, not built by man, but born from higher. No longer begging, no longer small, I found my wings inside the fall. I walk in truth, I walk in light. I lost it all and claimed my right. So when they ask, why did you fall? Say, to rise, to reign, to have it all.